For the past few days, a strange image has been spreading across Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, and YouTube. It appears to show Donald Trump standing face to face with two mysterious white-haired figures dressed in royal red uniforms. They are tall, unnaturally tall. Their skin is pale, almost colorless. Their hair falls past their shoulders in long silver-white sheets, and their coats, deep crimson, threaded with gold, buttoned to the throat, look like they were stitched for a coronation that happened 1,000 years ago. Some people claim they are powerful political figures. Others say they belong to a secret organization that has never been named. Some believe the image is connected to hidden history, to ancient mythology, even to a fictional underground kingdom called Agartha. And the strangest part? Within hours, this single image had been seen by millions, shared, screenshotted, argued over, turned into memes, into theories, into something that felt less like a photograph and more like a doorway. But what is actually going on here? Who are these mysterious figures? Why has this one image gone so viral so fast? And is there any truth at all behind the claims being shared online? Or has the entire internet just fallen for the same trick at the same time? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand not just what's in this image, but something far more unsettling about why you wanted it to be real. Let's start with what we can see with our own eyes. The picture shows three people standing on what looks like a manicured garden. Green hedges, tall trees, a pale stone building blurred in the background. It has the feeling of an official residence, the kind of place where important things happen quietly. In the center stands a man in a dark navy suit and a bright red tie. The posture is familiar. The expression is familiar. It is, unmistakably, Donald Trump, mid-conversation, as if caught in the middle of a sentence. But it's not the man in the center who stopped people scrolling. It's the two figures flanking him. On the left, a figure with sharp, angular features, skin like marble, and long, platinum hair, wearing a red military coat heavy with golden embroidery. On the right, an almost identical figure, turned slightly away, the same red uniform, the same impossible hair. They don't look like security. They don't look like diplomats. They look, frankly, like they walked out of a fantasy film and onto the White House lawn. And that is exactly the reaction the internet had. The image appears to have caught fire on the platform X around the 12th of June 2026, when it was shared in a post that quickly racked up millions of views. From there, it did what viral images always do. It jumped from X to TikTok, from TikTok to Instagram, from Instagram into group chats, into Facebook comment sections, into YouTube thumbnails just like this one. And as it spread, it changed. Because no one knew what they were looking at, everyone became free to decide for themselves. Some users joked that Trump was meeting aliens. Others compared the figures to the Targaryens from Game of Thrones, with their silver hair and royal bearing. Some said White Walkers, some said vampires from Twilight. Some pointed to older, stranger ideas, to so-called Nordic extraterrestrials, tall, pale visitors said to appear in certain UFO stories. Others insisted the answer was simpler, that these were ceremonial guards from some European monarchy, and the photo had just been color shifted to look eerie. Every theory contradicted the last. And that contradiction, that total absence of agreement, was rocket fuel. Because here's the thing about a mystery the internet can't solve. It doesn't get smaller, it gets bigger. So before we touch a single theory, we have to ask the question everyone skipped in their rush to explain it. Not who are they, but should we even trust that this moment ever happened at all? Hold that question. We'll come back to it. Because first, we have to talk about a legend that's far older than the internet, and the reason some people swore this image proved it was true. To understand why this image triggered something so deep in people, you have to understand one of the oldest and strangest ideas humans have ever told each other. The idea that the world beneath our feet is hollow, and that something lives down there. The legend of Agartha is the story of a hidden kingdom said to exist deep inside the earth. In the myth, it is not a cave or a tunnel, but a vast, lit, living world, with cities, with rulers, with a civilization far older and far wiser than our own. A people who long ago retreated underground, away from the surface, and have been watching us ever since. It sounds like fiction. And to be clear, there is no scientific evidence whatsoever that any such place exists. The Earth's interior, as far as every measurement we have can tell, is solid rock and molten metal, not open sky and secret cities. But the idea has a long and fascinating history. For centuries, people across many cultures told stories of underworlds and subterranean realms. Then, a few hundred years ago, a more specific notion appeared in Western thought, that the planet itself might be hollow. In the 1800s, some writers and amateur thinkers proposed that the Earth contained vast inner spaces, and that one could perhaps travel down into them. The most famous popular version of this is probably Jules Verne's novel Journey to the Center of the Earth, which fixed the image in the public imagination forever. By the late 19th century, the specific name Agartha, sometimes spelled in different ways, had entered the mix, carried along by occult writers who blended myth, mysticism, and invention into a single tantalizing story. A hidden kingdom, a wise underground race, entrances at the poles, in the mountains, in places no ordinary person could reach. None of it was ever proven, all of it was compelling. And that combination, unproven but compelling, is exactly the kind of story the internet was built to spread. Because in the age of social media, Agartha got a second life. It became a favorite of conspiracy forums, of mystery channels, of late-night threads where people connect ancient myths to modern events. The hollow earth, the hidden masters, the pale, ageless beings who supposedly walk among us in disguise. So when an image surfaced showing two tall, pale, silver-haired figures in regal uniforms standing beside the most powerful man on the planet, for a certain audience, a bell went off. This, they said, was it. This was contact. This was proof. The hidden kingdom had finally stepped into the daylight. But notice what happened there. The image didn't create the belief. The belief was already waiting. The image just gave it a face. And that raises a question we'll keep circling back to. Are we seeing what's really in the picture, or are we seeing the story we already wanted to find? Keep that in your mind, because now we have to look at those two figures much, much more closely. And what we find in the details is going to surprise you. Let's slow down and really study them, frame by frame, detail by detail, because the design of these two figures is doing something very deliberate to your brain. Start with the hair. Long, straight, and a pure platinum white. Not the gray of old age, but the silver of something otherworldly. In storytelling, white hair on a young, unlined face is a visual shortcut we've used for generations. It signals magic, royalty, something not quite human. Think of every fantasy series you've ever seen where the ancient elves or the lost royal bloodline are marked by silver hair. Your brain has been trained by 1,000 stories to read that detail as special. Now the skin, pale to the point of looking carved, smooth, cold, statue-like. Again, this is the visual language of the supernatural. Vampires, spirits, beings outside of time. We have been taught to associate that pallor with the uncanny, with things that don't belong to the ordinary world. Then the uniforms. And this is where it gets really interesting. Those deep red coats, the gold thread coiling across the chest, the high collars, the epaulets on the shoulders, the gold belt at the waist. This is the costume of European royal and military ceremony. It echoes palace guards, royal households, imperial courts. It is the wardrobe of power dressed up as tradition. When you see that much gold and crimson on a tailored coat, you don't think ordinary person. You think court, you think throne, you think someone who serves a king. So look at what the image has assembled. Silver hair that says magic, pale skin that says not human, royal uniforms that say ancient power, and then, planted right in the middle of all of it, a face every single person on earth recognizes. That's why this image hits so hard. It's a collision. The most familiar man in modern politics, standing calmly beside two figures built entirely out of fantasy symbolism. Your brain can't file it under normal. It demands an explanation. And when no official explanation arrives, you start generating your own. That's why people reached for secret societies, because secret societies are how we explain power we can see but can't understand. That's why they reached for fantasy royalty, because the costumes literally look like fantasy royalty. reality. That's why they reached for mythology, for Agartha, for aliens. Because when something looks like it can't be real, the mind's first instinct is to ask whether it belongs to another world entirely. But here's a quieter thought, a more uncomfortable one. Every single one of those clues, the hair, the skin, the uniforms, the symmetry of the two figures mirroring each other almost perfectly, every one of them is a choice, a design decision. Someone, or something, selected each of those details precisely because of the reaction they would trigger in you. And that word, something, is the door we're about to open. Because the most important question isn't what kingdom do they come from? The question is, were these two figures ever standing in that garden at all? Let's stop circling and say it plainly. According to fact checkers, verification tools, and AI detection analysis, the image is not a photograph of a real event. It is, by every available indication, generated by artificial intelligence. Even automated assistants asked to assess it concluded the same thing. It does not match any real meeting, any White House record, or any credible news report. There is no genuine occasion behind it. The figures were never there, because the figures, in any physical sense, were never anywhere. So how does something like this get made? And why does it look so convincing? A few years ago, fake images were easy to catch. The hands were wrong. 6 fingers, melted thumbs. The eyes didn't line up. Text in the background turned to gibberish. You could spot a fake in seconds. That era is over. Modern AI image generators have been trained on enormous quantities of real photographs. They have effectively studied what light does on skin, how fabric folds, how shadows fall across grass, how a camera lens softly blurs a background. So when you ask one of these systems to produce, say, a man in a suit standing in a garden between two figures in red uniforms, it doesn't paste pictures together. It builds a brand new image, pixel by pixel, that obeys the rules of how a real photograph would look. The result is something that has never existed, rendered with the texture, lighting, and depth of something that absolutely did. And the truly important shift is the speed and the ease. You no longer need to be a visual effects artist with expensive software and weeks of time. You need a sentence, a few words typed into a box. That's the entire cost of manufacturing a moment that looks like history. Now combine that with how the internet works. A realistic fake doesn't spread because it's true. It spreads because it makes you feel something. Shock, awe, confusion, the urgent need to show someone else. By the time anyone fact checks it, the image has already traveled around the world. The correction, if it ever comes, reaches a fraction of the people who saw the original. The lie sprints, the truth limps after it. And that is changing something fundamental about how we all see reality. For your entire life, a photograph meant proof. If you saw it, it happened. That instinct is wired deep. But we have now crossed into a world where a photograph means almost nothing on its own, where "I saw the picture" is no longer evidence of anything except that someone, somewhere, wanted you to see it. This image of Trump and the white-haired figures is, in that sense, almost a perfect teaching example. It is harmless on its surface, strange, funny, dreamlike, but it proves the technology works. It proves that millions of people can look at something fabricated from nothing and feel in their gut that it must be real. Which leads to the question that matters more than any theory about Agartha or aliens or secret guards. If we know, or could easily learn, that this image is fake, why did so many of us want it to be true? This is the part most people skip, and it's the part that actually explains everything. Because the figures in the image aren't the real mystery. You are. The mystery is the human mind, and why it leans almost gratefully into stories like this one. Start with how our brains are built. We are pattern-finding machines. For most of human history, the people who saw a hidden meaning behind a strange event, a rustle in the grass, a shadow at the tree line, were the ones who survived. We are the descendants of the anxious, the suspicious, the ones who assumed something was behind the unexplained. That instinct kept our ancestors alive. But it also means we are deeply uncomfortable with the idea that something something has no meaning at all. A weird image with no explanation feels like a problem the brain has to solve. And a secret kingdom, an alien contact, a hidden society, those feel like solutions. They're satisfying. They turn a random, meaningless picture into a story with stakes, with secrets, with a hidden order behind the chaos. That's the appeal of conspiracy thinking in general. It's not that believers are foolish. It's that a hidden explanation can feel more comforting than the truth, which is often just random things happen and powerful people are as confused as the rest of us. A secret plan, even a sinister one, implies that someone is in control. For a lot of people, that's strangely reassuring. Then add curiosity, the simple, powerful itch of an unanswered question. Once your mind opens a loop, who are these people? It desperately wants to close it. That open loop is uncomfortable. So you keep scrolling. You read the replies. You watch the next video. You're not even enjoying it exactly. You just can't put it down until you feel like you know. Now layer on internet culture. Online, being first to figure it out earns attention. Posting the wildest theory gets more engagement than posting it's probably fake. Mystery is a social currency. The strange image becomes a kind of game everyone gets to play, and nobody wants to be the boring person who ends the game early by saying the obvious thing. And finally, the part almost no one accounts for, the algorithms. Social media platforms are not designed to show you what's true. They're designed to show you what keeps you watching. And nothing keeps people watching like outrage, awe, and mystery. So a bizarre, unexplained, emotionally charged image is exactly the kind of thing the system grabs and amplifies. The more people argue about it, the more the machine pushes it. The platform doesn't know or care whether the figures are real. It only knows the image works. So picture all of this happening at once. A brain wired to find meaning, a curiosity loop that won't close, a culture that rewards the wildest guess, and an algorithm pouring gasoline on all of it. That's not a glitch in the system. For a viral hoax, that is the system, working exactly as designed, which is why it's finally time to do the thing the internet almost never does. Slow down, set the theories aside, and separate what we actually know from what we only wished were true. Let's lay out the evidence, calmly, one piece at a time. No drama, just what holds up. First, the image is, by all credible assessment, artificially generated. Multiple fact checks and verification analyses point to the same conclusion. This is not a photograph of a real meeting. There is no record of such an event, no matching footage, no official documentation. The figures in the red uniforms do not correspond to any verified person, delegation, or ceremony. Second, it did not come from Trump himself, and it was not released by the White House. The image appears to have spread from a social media post in mid-June 2026, not from any official channel. As of the time this was written, the White House had offered no comment, and there is no reason it should because there is no real event to comment on. Third, let's deal directly with the most reasonable-sounding explanation that circulated, the claim that these were members of a royal guard from Norway, supposedly photographed during a past state visit. This is the theory worth examining, precisely because it sounded credible, and it falls apart on contact with the facts. Norway's royal guard does not wear bright red uniforms like these. A supposed screenshot of a news article said to prove the meeting could not be verified and appears to have been fabricated. And small details in the surrounding story didn't even line up with how Norway's government actually works. In other words, even the sensible explanation turned out to be another layer of the hoax. Fourth, every other theory, the Targaryens, the White Walkers, the vampires, the Pleiadians, the Nordic aliens, the Anunnaki, the citizens of Agartha rising from the hollow earth, none of these are supported by any evidence whatsoever. They are not findings, they are reactions. They are the human imagination doing what it does when handed a blank space, filling it. So here is the honest, complete summary of what we actually know. A realistic, AI-generated image was posted online. It was strange and striking. It spread to millions of people within hours. It generated an explosion of competing explanations, none of them real. And the most exotic theories, the secret kingdoms, the ancient beings, have exactly as much supporting evidence as you'd expect for an image conjured out of nothing. None. That's it. That's the whole factual story. It's almost an anticlimax, isn't it? After all the mystery, the answer is quiet. A machine made a picture. People believed it. But before you click away thinking the case is closed, don't. Because we've only solved the small mystery. The big one is still standing right in front of us. And it's far more important than two figures in red coats. Here's the truth this whole thing was really about. The image was never the story. We are the story. Think about what just happened, start to finish. A picture that took seconds to generate reached millions of human beings. It bent their curiosity, shaped their conversations, spawned theories that connected a modern president to ancient underground kingdoms. People felt awe. People felt suspicion. People felt certain on all sides without ever confirming a single fact. And all of it was set in motion by something that, in the physical world, never happened. That is the real revelation. Not who stands beside Trump in the photo, but how little it took to make the world react as if it were real. Because this image is harmless, it's almost a joke. But the exact same machinery, the same technology, the same psychology, the same algorithms can be aimed at things that are not harmless at all. A fake image of a politician doing something they never did, a fabricated disaster, a staged crime, a manufactured moment designed not to amuse you, but to enrage you, to frighten you, to make you vote or fight or hate based on something that was typed into a box by a stranger. We are entering an age where seeing is no longer believing, where the oldest form of proof we have, the photograph, the recording, the image with our own eyes, can be manufactured on demand. And the only defense we have left is not better technology, it's a better habit. The habit of pausing, of asking where did this come from before asking what does it mean, of being willing to sit in the discomfort of I don't know yet, instead of rushing to I knew it all along. The white-haired figures will be forgotten in a week. A new image will take their place, and then another. This is not a one-time event. This is the water we all swim in now. So the figures in red were never the mystery worth solving. The mystery worth solving is the reflex inside all of us, the one that saw something impossible and for a moment decided to believe. So let's end where we began, with the image. Trump, calm in his navy suit, two silver-haired figures in royal red, standing in a garden that never existed, at a meeting that never happened. We came here asking who they were. We leave knowing they were no one at all, pixels arranged to press exactly the right buttons in the human mind. And perhaps that's the lesson hiding inside this strange little internet moment. Perhaps the biggest mystery is not who stands beside Trump in this image. Perhaps the biggest mystery is why millions of people were willing to believe the story before knowing whether it was true. The next time an image stops you mid-scroll and whispers, "This changes everything," pause. Ask where it came from. Ask who wanted you to see it. Because in a world where anything can be shown to you, the most powerful thing you can do is decide what you choose to believe.